and a forensics team to my address, please.
I remember seeing pictures of Breck's cut up clothes and the duct tape that had been cut off, and I just remember feeling just insane amount of anger and rage to think of Breck in that kind of situation and how this horrible person could have done that to him as a 14-year-old boy, and just to render him completely helpless. I just can't. I don't want to imagine that sort of situation.
Online, there was even more shocking evidence of his sadistic murder.
He then sent some of the gamers, some of Breck's friends, who were only 14, 15 themselves, and sent them pictures of Breck in an attempted beheading.
I remember feeling absolute horror over what Breck must have had to endure.
And the predator lied that Breck tried to attack him. And
I, in self-defense, put my left arm up to block him from stabbing me effectively.
But at the end of the day, the proof was there. This predator is clever, but evil. A monster. It breaks my heart to think of Breck in those last minutes, and he probably did think, oh my God, Mom was right. And that's when I wish I could have been there to save him.
For months, Danes used this online forum, TeamSpeak, to manipulate and gradually control Breck, exploiting the teenager's love of video games. In Lewis Dane's defence, his solicitor said he was socially isolated and had been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, but sentencing him to a minimum of 25 years in jail, the judge said none of that could excuse the murder of a young boy in such horrific circumstances.
Surrey police apologised to Breck's family, admitting it never checked on the background of Lewis Danes. Records showed that previously, Danes had been investigated for rape of a younger boy.
Meanwhile, Breck's family have set up a foundation to help raise money and awareness to help protect children from those they meet online.
I want Breck's tragedy to help open the eyes of everyone to recognize the dangers of online predators. It is a very real danger today.
He's so cute.
I then set up the Breck Foundation to bring about awareness.
I think anybody is vulnerable. It's just looking out for the signs and keeping yourself aware. It's Brighton Pier.
Yeah.
A groomer or a sexual predator can come in any shapes and sizes or age. You know, it could be anyone, and anyone can be groomed.
I need police and a forensics team to my address, please.
He was cold. He was callous. He didn't even have enough patience to allow the call handler to ask him the questions.
Can you not interrupt me with this part?
That phone call says everything. It was no accident. It was no moment of, well, what a stupid thing I did. That's him, true and true. That phone call shows who he is.
Right, and listen to me. I am going to have to remind you completely. So stop crying, get a breath, and sort yourself out. All right? Right. Your girlfriend, okay? What exactly happened?
We met down this lane.
Catterick, home to the British Army's largest garrison, with 13,000 service personnel. From the edge of the base, a 999 call from a man claiming he's just awoken from unconsciousness.
The man on the line was called Andrew Pearson. He sounds utterly distraught. He can barely string a sentence together at the start of the call.
Stop crying, stop crying. Just take your breath, give yourself a couple of seconds. All right, bring your breath back. All right, and then you just stop crying.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
He claims he's just bumped into his girlfriend and somehow they walked across the stream and she'd fallen and banged her head.
She must have slipped and dragged me, because I remember hitting my back, and then I realised she's in the water, and just dragged her out.
And then he tried to do CPR on her, but in doing so he passed out unconscious.
Just take your breath. What time did you wake? What time?
I don't know. I think 4 o'clock.
Right.
See, that just doesn't make sense to me. The story he gave just didn't add up.
She was purple.
No.
Was coming out of her mouth.
Pearson's girlfriend was Natalie Harker from the nearby village of Colburn. He said they'd met before dawn that morning on a cycle path close to her home.
I've been camping for a few days, just chill out in this woodland area. And okay, so I met Natalie, and we went over the field into the wood, and we went for a walk.
Before calling 999, he claimed he'd been asleep in his tent for 8 hours.
Pearson meets the police officers on the main road between Catterick and Colburn. He takes them across the fields and into the woods where he'd been camping. When the police officers go into the tent, it's there that they make the gruesome discovery of Natalie Harker's naked body underneath Pearson's sleeping bag.
Take your breath again. Just take a breath. Slow yourself down. All right.
In any investigation where a 999 call has been made, police will always go and get the recording.
Take your breath back. All right, and then you just stop crying.
Yeah.
All right, you're back with me again now.
Oh my God.
In this instance, not just what he said, but how he was saying it would be hugely important to build up an understanding of, well, is he telling the truth?
She must have slipped and dragged me, because I remember hitting my back, and then I realised she's in the water, and just dragged her out.
Pearson explained that it was an accident, and he's managed to drag her to the tent.
I'm first aid trained, so I dragged her into it, and I did what you do. Yeah. Well, I thought she was breathing, and she seemed okay. Like, blurry.
Now, I've done a lot of first aid training, and one of the first things they tell you to do is dial 999. And he would have had ample opportunity to do that. Dragging her from the stream up to the tent and going through all this, he's made no attempts to get the professionals there to try and save her life.
So we did what I'm trying to do, is strip her off, and we got a blanket, and then I woke up and she was purple.
He says he stripped her of her clothes and he tried to perform CPR. But the clothes that Natalie was taken from her were neatly folded and packed away into a compartment in the tent. Why would he do that? If in this rush, panic, I'm trying to save my girlfriend, at what stage would you be folding the clothes before you passed out? I think what they were starting to do is build a picture that you're telling me this, but that does not make sense. And if you're lying to us, then the chances are it's because you're trying to hide something.
At the moment in time, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder, okay? You understand?
By the time officers discovered Natalie's body, they already knew her name. Earlier that day, they'd made her the subject of an urgent media alert.
Police have appealed for information regarding the whereabouts of a 30-year-old woman from Colburn near Catterick. Natalie Harker left her home at around 4:30 this morning to start a cleaning shift at a local health centre, but she never arrived.
Less than 4 hours on, the missing persons case had taken a tragic turn, and detectives needed to find out all they could about the woman at the centre.
There's a saying in murder investigation: to understand how a person died, you have to understand how they lived. And that's because most victims and suspects are linked in some way. So it's really important at this stage that the police started to build up a picture of Natalie to get a really good understanding of what was going on in her life and who in particular was in her life, and if there was anybody that would have motive for killing her. This is also known as victimology.
Detectives learned that Natalie was a popular local figure, a regular churchgoer, close to her parents and brother. She and Pearson began dating whilst working together at a superstore. Colleagues described her as friendly and bubbly, whereas he was socially awkward and a loner. As time went on, she grew tired of his mood swings and problems with money.
Pearson had subsequently lost his job and he wasn't working during their relationship, to the point where Natalie became increasingly frustrated with him. He wasn't bringing anything to the relationship and didn't seem to be going anywhere with his life. So she decided to finish with him, and he didn't take it well.
He couldn't accept that the relationship was over, so he started to harass Natalie, sending her messages, unwanted messages, turning up at places where he knew she would be, turning up at her work. And his behaviour started to worry her, and she confided in friends that, actually, I'm starting to fear what he may do.
Coming just weeks before Natalie's death, the breakup brought more suspicion on Pearson. It also called his 999 account further into question.
I've been camping for a few days, just chill out in this woodland area. And okay, so I met Natalie, and we went over the field into the wood, and we went for a walk.
It beggars belief that someone who is being stalked by their ex-partner would go for a walk with him at 5 o'clock in the morning in the pitch black, across fields and into woodland. Natalie was scared of the dark. She didn't like creepy crawlers. There's no way that she would have followed him unless she'd been forced to go with him that morning.
Is there anything you want to say now?
At the initial stages of this incident, so the 999 call, and when Pearson was speaking to officers at the scene, he was very open with them. But when he got to a police station, he decided that he would say nothing.
If there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for all these things, this is your chance. Tell us.
If we think about the circumstances that he is saying he has found himself in, this was an accident. He had nothing to do with Natalie's death. Well, if that was the case, just put yourself in that position. For me, and I think for most people, the natural thing is just to explain exactly what's happened. That's not what Pearson did. He shut down completely and refused to answer any of the officers' questions.
As the interview continued, the pathologist's full report came in. The questions to Pearson were about to become far more difficult.
The post-mortem revealed that Natalie had been dead for some time. She had suffered neck compression and she'd been forced into the water. So Pearson's story starts to fall apart.
She must have slipped and dragged me, because I remember hitting my back, and then I realised she's in the water, and I just dragged her out.
She hadn't fallen. Somebody had squeezed her neck and held her face under the water to the point where she breathed it in.
Oh my fucking
She'd been
God.
killed.
Police have confirmed they're now treating the case of Natalie Harker, who went missing near Catterick 2 days ago, as one of murder. It comes after a post-mortem revealed she'd been strangled and drowned.
When a post-mortem takes place, the pathologist isn't only trying to establish how a person died, but the circumstances around it. In this instance, what the pathologist was able to say was that there was bruising and marks to Natalie's hands that would indicate that her hands were tied together at some point. This was really important because inside the tent was found gaffer tape that indicated that this could have been used to bind Natalie at some point, to incapacitate her so she couldn't move. And a really significant finding was the indications that sexual activity had taken place. If we look at Pearson's account, there's no mention of that. This is something you can't just miss. If sexual activity has taken place, why didn't he mention it? If he hasn't mentioned it, the likelihood is that, well, this is probably the motivation.
Pearson continued his attempt to thwart the investigation. As well as blanking detectives' questions, he tried to prevent them accessing his mobile phone. But thanks to the involvement of a specialist digital forensics team, his tactic was doomed to fail.
If somebody who's been arrested refuses to give the password for their laptop or the PIN for their mobile phone, they're just causing delays, because digital forensic analysts have certain advanced tools in order to break that password and decrypt the files and gain access to the information that is not available without that password.
We met down this lane.
Once police did gain access, they understood why Pearson displayed such a precise knowledge of the local geography during his 999 call.
So I met Natalie and we went over the field into the woods and we went for a walk. So there's like an open area, and as we were going down there.
What the examination of Pearson's phone showed was that on it were some photographs, and photographs that he had deleted, in his mind thinking he's getting rid of them forever, without realising that the technicians can retrieve those photographs from the phone.
The photos showed a series of familiar scenes. The cycle path Natalie used on her way to work each morning, a locked gate separating the path from a field, and across that field a stream and woodland. But just as important as the images was the date they were captured, September the 30th.
What these photographs showed was that 9 days before Natalie's death, he was taking what I would describe as reconnaissance photographs. And this would have been more reason why the police would have started to believe that this isn't a random act. this is premeditated, this is planned, and this planning has been going on for at least 9 days.
Just as Pearson's efforts to erase the photos failed, so did his attempt to mislead the police about his movements on the morning of the murder.
I've been camping for a few days, just chill out in this woodland area.
A mobile phone, a live mobile phone that is connected to the internet, that is connected to a GPS system, that is connected to the closest mast where you're walking, it collects all sorts of information at all times. It's always like a tracking device at all times in your pocket.
Thanks to the recovered data, detectives could now see Natalie's and Pearson's movements before the murder. He'd not spent the night under canvas as he claimed. Until the early hours, he was still at his house, 3/4 of a mile away. He then left, heading to the secluded spot on the cycle path he knew Natalie would use that morning. It was half an hour later that she set off to work from her own home in Colburn Village. Within minutes, she'd reached the cycle path, where she rode towards a lethal ambush. The phone data showed Pearson and Natalie then crossing the field towards the woods. Thanks to his earlier recce, he was able to navigate his way around the various obstacles. As light began to dawn, he powered down his phone. By then, Natalie was almost certainly dead, the result of being forced headfirst into the stream.
Just take a breath, give yourself a couple of seconds. All right, take your breath back. All right, and I need you to stop crying.
Yeah.
All right, be back with me again now.
It was more than 9 hours before Pearson alerted anyone to Natalie's injuries or sought medical help.
Pearson told the police that because of the pain in his back, this had caused him to pass out. And he only came round when he received a telephone call from someone in America.
What time did you wake up? Just take your breath. What time did you wake up?
I don't know. A friend from America phoned me. I think 4 o'clock.
Right. Now, when the police interrogated his phone, they found this to be a lie. He can't have been unconscious because one of his devices was moving around, clearly in his pocket at the time. In actual fact, what he had done is he had phoned America, couldn't get through for some reason, wouldn't connect, and then he sent a message, and it was a rather telling message. This is essentially a confession. Here was Pearson himself telling somebody, I've killed Natalie and I'm going to hand myself in. That's exactly what happened. He killed her, and he did dial 999, essentially handing himself in. Except what he didn't do is then tell the truth. He then decided to continue this pack of lies, pretending that it was actually an accident the whole time.
At Pearson's trial, the jury heard the full story of his infatuation with Natalie and his refusal to accept that their relationship was over.
Pearson had been bombarding her with texts and turning up at her work to the point where she became so concerned she told people that if they saw him with her, that they should intervene on her behalf. Tragically, she was told by friends that she should go to the police and tell them that she was being stalked, but she didn't. Perhaps she was being nice and kind and didn't want to get him in trouble.
When his efforts to win Natalie back failed, he resorted to a different tactic, attempting to discredit her character on social media.
So this whole thing is about control. What I've seen so many times where a suspect for a murder, when they're losing that control of their loved one, their victim, their partner, they try and control the narrative around the relationship. And that's what I see here. He's trying to tell everybody, look, I'm the innocent party here, not her. If you hear anything from her, she's lying. That's what he's trying to do. Try and control how people see him and how they see Natalie.
The jury believed none of Pearson's claims. After their guilty verdict, the judge described him as self-centered, calculating, and evil.
Right. Your girlfriend, okay? What exactly happened?
We met down this lane.
As I'm listening to this, the word that jumps out to me is just selfishness. This was all about Pearson, about Pearson's hurt feelings that he'd been essentially dumped.
And then I realised she's in the water, and I just dragged her out.
This was all about him. He didn't care about Natalie. He only cared about himself, how people saw him.
Did you try CPR again?
She was purple, and there was blood coming out of her mouth.
So everything that Pearson was telling them was clearly a pack of lies. And this wicked, wicked act has had such an impact. It's taken away Natalie's life, taken away her future. All due to the selfishness of this man who was just thinking about himself and the control that he needed over Natalie in his own life.
Number Powers, please. I need connecting a mobile. Thank you, Bangor, please. Emergencies. Hiya, my brother's died. Your what, sorry? My mum has just died. I think she just died. I can't see her pulse. I can't do anything. Okay, people. Her name is Betty Guy, and she was in doctor. Okay, so you think your mum had passed away, is that correct? Well, I can't get any pulse, and she's been really ill. She's got bowel cancer, and I can't take time.
When you listen to this call, you do get the impression of a loving daughter who's immensely sad at losing her mum. She sounds incredibly emotional, vulnerable, and it's no wonder then that the call handler deals with her in a kind and gentle way.
Okay. And she's really, really cold. Okay. Okay, don't stay on the line for me one moment, okay? I'm going to get an ambulance there and the police with you there. What's your name? It's Penny John.
Penny John's call created little attention. There were no headlines, house-to-house inquiries, or suspicions.
After the 999 call, things move pretty quickly. The doctor comes round to certify the death, and then because Betty's found to have died from natural causes, she's cremated 4 days later, and her ashes are spread by Penny in her garden.
The death would have remained forgotten had the police not been contacted unexpectedly by the ex-partner of a man living in Frome in Somerset. In her call, she claimed that Barry Rogers, a former soldier, had confessed to her that he'd suffocated an elderly relative with a pillow. The victim, his grandmother, Betty Guy.
Once the report was made to the police, they then spoke to other ex-partners. It would appear he had several ex-partners that he'd confessed or spoken to about it. And the language that was used was very consistent, and they hadn't got together and made this up. They had independently said and reported it to the police when they were asked about it.
Hiya, my mum has just died.
You're what, sorry?
My mum has just died. I think she just died. I can't get her house.
The interviews prompted detectives to hunt out the 999 call from Barry Rogers' mother that had long been stored away in their archives.
Okay, stay on the line for me one moment.
The recording gave them not one, but two significant grounds for concern.
Penny stated that her mother had 2 types of cancer.
Yes, because I'm no cancer, bowel cancer, and she's got polymyalgia as well.
But the police actually went back and looked at her medical records and found that she actually didn't have either of those cancers. So that was the first thing that rang alarm bells. The second part was the call handler actually asked Penny if there was anybody else with her at the house.
Is there anybody else with you at all?
Yeah, my son died on.
Okay, that's great stuff. Okay, stay with me one moment.
So, you know, that placed him at the scene of the potential crime, the suspected crime.
As Betty was believed to have died from natural causes, there was no post-mortem. And, due to the cremation, there was no body for the police to exhume. So detectives asked a forensic pathologist to review the notes from the doctor who confirmed her death. These made reference to a condition known as petechiae.
Petechiae are best to be considered as small bruises, tiny bruises, perhaps a couple of millimeters across, and they appear in the skin, and sometimes within the ears, within the mouth, within the eyes. They're typically associated with pressure, and if we think of the neck, if I put pressure on the neck and I put enough pressure, then above that level of pressure that's being applied, petechiae, almost like little burst blood vessels, can appear anywhere above that level of compression. In the deceased person, visible petechiae on the skin surface certainly would raise concerns that death might not be natural.
At the time of Betty's death, it was thought the marks may have been the result of efforts to revive her. But now, armed with the new information, detectives wanted to hear from her relatives directly, starting with her grandson, Barry Rogers.
I knew for weeks, for months, that my nan was ill.
Yeah.
We all knew it was coming.
From what they had about the ex-girlfriend's comments, from what they knew that he was at the scene, they wanted to see how he reacted, what he had to say about it.
Just tell me what happened that evening.
I drove from Frome to Johnson pretty fast. And by the time I got there, my nan had already died.
And he just stated that he was there. It was natural causes. She was old.
She was 84. She's not a spring chicken anymore.
He was defensive. You know, he had his arms crossed.
So all of what she's saying, he's never said that.
No.
He had the air of, I can't believe I'm here and they're questioning me for something I would never do.
So are you responsible for the death of Betty Guy?
No.
As well as arresting Rogers on suspicion of murder, detectives also questioned Penny John under caution. During her interview, she said she'd gone to Betty's house out of concern for her health.
It is someone sex. They didn't think to see you and said, you've got to come to this. She's not really not well.
She said her son had later driven to the house from Somerset because Betty had asked to see him. But by the time he arrived, she had died.
So it's a long way from, and I know he loved his mother, like loads.
In the absence of forensic evidence or confessions, the investigation team had to release them both. But they had one card still to play.
When police released Barry Rogers, it was on condition that he stayed with his mum in her home in St Dog Miles. What neither of them knew is that while they were being interviewed, undercover officers had been into the home and fitted it with a bugging device. So as they arrived home, everything they were about to say was going to be recorded.
My mum has just died. I think she just died. I can't see her pulse. I can't see anything.
5 years after Penny John's 999 call, the police now viewed her and her son as murder suspects.
Is there anybody else with you at all? Yeah, my son, Barry John.
In their police interviews, both denied murdering Betty Guy. But would they do the same in private? To find out, officers drew up plans to put them both under surveillance.
I think we're used to seeing, in movies and TV shows, police surveillance operations just happening. Somebody mentions it and then it just happens, and they've got a team and it all just is very quick, very smooth, which couldn't be further from the truth. There's a lot of things that you need to think about with regards to legalities. It's not just a matter of, can we do this, boss? Yes, you can. There's a lot of things you have to consider and a lot of things you have to do. When you are going to plant a bug, a listening device, you need to give it a lot of consideration because you don't want any background noise. So things like fire alarms or light fittings are great. You don't want it near a television. You don't want it near a cooker because the background noise would saturate it. So you want it in a room where the echo is good enough to draw the sound into the listening device. You need to know what you're walking into before really you start thinking about where you're going to put it. So that's exactly what our specialist officers are trained in. They know exactly what they're doing, what the best place is for these bugs.
The covert operation brought immediate results.
Rogers and John start to incriminate themselves almost from the moment that they step foot through the door. In the first conversation, they discuss what police say that they might be charged with.
What? No, it's good to see it. I'm good. No, I'm good.
If I was the person that was monitoring that conversation, I think there would have been a few high fives, a few tea and medals, we call it in the police. When you've done a good job, it's called tea and medals. All the work that's gone into this case is just give us a confession.
Later in the conversation, there was another, apparently damning admission.
We wouldn't accept to give him whiskey, or some tablets in a whiskey.
At one point, they talk about a time where they discussed putting crushed pills in Betty's whiskey to sedate her. They're concerned that they had this conversation via text and that the police may be able to find a record of it. But they then convinced themselves they only had that discussion verbally.
You said that by text, and you're like saying, I'm nothing.
Crushed the pills on that.
Yeah. I reckon I said it on the phone.
The irony of that is that the more they talk about it, the more they put themselves in trouble.
They said that they were going to check our Xbox on the same day to see what everything said on Messenger. You know, jackpot.
He's just got absolutely no remorse for what he's done, using words like jackpot. He's murdered his grandmother and he's saying jackpot. I mean, I think that goes a long way in telling you what sort of person he is.
In all, The surveillance team gathered more than 70 hours of conversations.
All it is you're saying they can't prove it one way.
Although at times both appeared nervous about what evidence the police had, Rogers in particular was confident.
We deny it all the way. They can't prove it one way. Because there's no evidence.
Rogers was the one reassuring John that she was going to be absolutely fine. There was going to be no conviction. The jury would never find them guilty. You know, she was an old lady. She just died of natural causes or of old age, I think was the term he used.
They keep saying that they can't prove it. Without solid, concrete evidence, the CPS will say no.
And he was constantly reassuring her because he actually believed that there was nothing, there was no concrete on him or her, which tells me they're not mastermind criminals.
5 days after planting the bug, undercover officers went back into the house to remove it. 9 months on, detectives arrested Rogers and John again and questioned them about the recordings.
Were you aware that the police had bugged your mum's house?
Yes, I was.
You was?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
A lot of criminals, when they are caught out by surveillance, they always make out that they know that they're being watched or they know that they're being listened to. It's quite common because they're egotistical and they always want to think they're one step ahead of the police.
Okay. And how were you aware of that?
I bought a bug detector.
Right.
And everything I said was to take the piss out of you pigs.
In relation to that device that you purchased?
Yes.
Where did you get that from?
eBay.
When Rogers claimed that he'd made this purchase from eBay, police officers asked him, well, when did you order this? At what point did you order this? And he stated that he actually ordered it in the back of the car whilst he was being transported from the police station back to his bail address, which is questionable considering that, you know, eBay don't do same-day delivery. And thankfully, you know, they called him out on it.
I'm aware of Amazon Prime, whereby deliveries can get turned around within a couple of days. Was it from a local buyer on eBay?
No comment.
And he was unable to answer because obviously he was lying.
Was it through some sort of Prime shipping service?
No comment.
What did the device do to indicate that a bug had been placed in the property?
No comment.
Can you recall the name of the device?
No comment.
Okay, stay on the line with me one moment, okay? I'm going to get an ambulance there and the police with you then.
Based on the interviews, the covert recordings, and Betty Guy's medical notes, the police now had a theory on what really happened on the night of the 999 call.
Their conclusion was that Penny John had convinced herself that her mother was in pain and wanted to die.
Well, I come to his house and she's been really out and I tell her to take time.
On that evening, she had visited her mother and decided that was the moment that she needed to go. And so she called her son, who drove up from Somerset, and helped to sedate her. When she was sedated, Penny John put a pillow over her mother's face. But when she began to struggle, Barry Rogers took over until she was suffocated.
But it didn't happen like that. My mum passed away on her own.
In relation to Barry's comment, but I did it.
I didn't hear that.
In relation to Barry's comments, no, honestly, you've got nothing to worry about. It's me, the one that's done the act. What did Barry mean by this?
I don't know. I don't know, but my mum died herself. And I was in the bedroom. She was everything to me. Everything. And all this is horrible.
Rogers and John never said what their motive was because they always denied being involved in Betty Guy's death. But unusually, the prosecution and the police also had a hard time coming up with a motive. Betty lived in a very modest former council home and had no money to speak of, so there was no financial incentive to kill her. Their best guess was that Penny John had become convinced that her mum was unwell and that she needed to kill her in a sort of mercy killing.
They didn't think to see me and said, you've got to give her she's not really not well.
The fact is that Barry Rogers and Penny John showed absolutely no mercy towards Betty when they did what they did to her.
She's feeling, she's not right. She's so tired and she's I'm talking to her, she's falling asleep. And she's just really, really tired.
In many ways, this could have been the perfect murder. Unfortunately, Rogers was unable to keep his mouth closed and he just couldn't help but talk about it. The covert recordings were very important, but we mustn't forget the 999 call was a huge catalyst for this operation to even happen.
My brother's died.
You are sorry?
It was able to put Rogers at the scene.
Is there anybody else with you at all?
Yeah, my son died, John.
We knew that John had lied on the call about her mother's illnesses.
You said she had stomach cancer and bowel cancer, is that correct?
Yes, because I'm no cancer, bowel cancer, I've got polymyalgia as well.
Okay.
So that was the point where actually we pivoted to get this covert operation off the ground. Without that, there would have been no conviction. We needed that, absolutely, not a single doubt about it.
You ready to ride with the diesel? Let's go.
We've just gone up to the workshop to pick some things out.
Yeah.
And somebody came up with us behind.
Yeah.
And they attacked us and set fire to the place.
Whilst they were there, they were attacked by two men. These two men were masked. They'd also set fire to the place.
So the place that set fire?
Yeah.
Is it the building that's on fire?
Yeah.
It is, okay then.
She was obviously distressed and urgently requesting some help.
I got out. I managed to get them.
Right, yeah.
It's
okay. Is everybody out of the building?
No, there's still my partner in.
Right, is he able to get out of the building?
No, because there's fires near the door.
So he's stuck inside. He can't get out of the fire.
Julie Dixon had managed to escape, but her partner David Twigg was still trapped inside the building.
I opened the door, I got the baggies, I opened the other door, and the flames had come back.
That person is in a burning building. That's the highest priority call we can have. We have to get there as fast as we can.
But they attacked us and set fire to the place.
She sounds really traumatised.
The 999 call handler alerted the local fire brigade that a person was reported trapped. David Twigg was locked inside a tiny cupboard. Flames directly outside were filling the room with smoke. 15 firefighters arrived.
They had to break down the door. They dealt with a very, very small fire in front of the store cupboard, got into the store cupboard where they found David.
he was found in a crowd-type position, and he'd just been overcome by the smoke and the fumes and couldn't escape.
Ambulance crews tried to resuscitate David Twigg, but he was pronounced dead at the scene.
I can't imagine what David must have gone through. Pitch black, full of acrid smoke, hot fumes, probably some petrol seeping underneath the door as well, and breathing in those acrid, poisonous fumes until he couldn't breathe them in any longer, burning his lungs. Just horrendous. With David dying as a result of the fire, it clearly became a murder investigation. Julie Dixon was still at the scene. Her appearance was entirely consistent with having been caught in the fire itself. She was injured, she had some slight burning and singeing, and her clothing was stained and damaged as well. She was in a state of huge distress. She was hysterical, kept crying, screaming, shouting.
Police locked down the couple's home and the workshop next door where David had died. The difficult hunt for clues began.
Fire at a crime scene, whether it's a murder or an arson or anything involving a fire, is a big challenge, because by its very nature, fire destroys evidence. If you add that then to the fact that it's a joinery workshop with sawdust, grease oil, mud, dirty machinery, and it's a huge place, it's a real challenge because it needs to be forensically examined thoroughly.
Julie Dixon was treated in hospital. Next day, she gave police her story of what happened.
Both her and David, partner, they'd gone up to the workshop at the joinery premises to sort some bits and pieces out, and whilst they were there, they'd been attacked by two masked men. Julie was able to escape. David was locked in the storeroom and a fire was set. She saw the two men come out of the property, and they went down the side and round the back, which basically is in the direction of open fields. So she went back in, but as she opened the door, she was met by kind of a fire, which caused her injuries. And obviously then she made the phone call and waited for the emergency services to arrive.
It's okay. Is everybody out of the building?
No, there's still my partner in.
Right, is he able to get out of the building?
No, because there's fires near the door.
Continue straight.
Julie Dixon told police that she and David were devoted to each other, a message she was keen for everyone to hear.
Mr. Twigg's partner, Julie Dixon, told Look North, "I'm so numb with pain, my heart is broken. I've not just lost my partner of 15 years, I've lost the love of my life, my best friend, and my soulmate. David was fun-loving, caring, and a well-liked gentleman."
Lincolnshire police are searching for two masked men believed to have started a fire that killed a local businessman. David Twigg, aged 40.
There was simply no track of these masked intruders. They seemed to have vanished into thin air. So effectively, what we had was a manhunt.
There was very little to go on. Two masked men, they'd gone, but no forensic evidence to speak of at that time. You've got an isolated location, like a needle in a haystack, really.
Continue straight.
We were working on the assumption that this was most likely a robbery gone wrong. There appeared to be little motive for why somebody would want to target specifically David Twigg. He didn't appear to have any skeletons in his closet. There really didn't appear to be any other logical reason at that time for why he would have been targeted.
In a place where crime was low, there was widespread shock and disbelief at the murder.
There was a real sense of mystery about what had happened. Laura Marsh is such a quiet, remote location. The traditional small Lincolnshire village, most people who have been born and raised in the area, gone to the same schools, drinking the same pubs. David Twigg and Julie Dixon were well known in the community, predominantly because of David's joinery business. A lot of people in the area used him. Julie also also worked with the business, and most people in the area knew them and liked them. The property where David and Julie lived and worked was effectively the old railway buildings that served Bromley Marsh and was on the outskirts of the village, in some ways quite isolated.
Motive is always key in any murder investigation. If you can tease out the reason why it's happened, it often leads to finding out who's responsible. So that the motive was always running through my mind. Why has this happened? What's the reason it's happened?
For answers, the police turned to specialist units.
We had our own crime scene investigators. We also employed forensic scientists from independent laboratories who were specialists in fire investigation. Plus, we brought in a specialist detection dog as well.
The fire service also used its investigative knowledge.
When you train to become a fire investigator, the first thing you train to do is to look for the evidence that the fire is created, not the evidence the fire is destroyed.
The detectives and set fire to the place.
Julie says that she opened the door outside of the building when the fire had flashed on her.
I opened the door, I got the spare keys, I opened the other door, and the flames have come.
If the door is open, smoke will come out and it will stain the outside brickwork. So you will see a smoke pattern on the outside of the brickwork above the door. And also the door itself would acquire smoke. This particular instance, the door's clean, the door's got no smoke, there's no smoke above it on the brickwork or anything like that. Preliminary investigation to us said that door had never been opened during the fire at all.
The next discovery, a petrol can inside the workshop.
The dog found the remains of a 5-litre red petrol can right on the floor behind the door. In fact, it was so close to the door that when the door first opened, a firefighter stepped in it. At the time that Julie says she'd opened that door, she would have pushed that petrol can away from the door in an arc. So when the fire crew opened the door, the petrol can would not have been in that position. So they were the two key markers for us that straight away said that door hadn't been opened during that fire.
Armed with this detailed information, police decided the couple's home needed to be searched, leading to a potential breakthrough.
In the bathroom sink were found some very small hairs. They were eyebrow hairs. They were identified as having belonged to Julie Dixon. It was singed, it was burned hair. She'd clearly gone back to the bungalow at some point while David was trapped in the burning building to check on her injuries. At no point in her account did she say that she'd gone back in the bungalow to do anything.
Continue straight.
Is everybody out of the building?
No, there's still my partner in.
For detectives, the discovery of a singed eyebrow hair in Julie Dixon's home immediately aroused suspicion.
The investigation starts to shift. There's anomalies, if you like, that are coming to light.
Right, is he able to get out of the building?
No, because there's fires near the door.
While doubts were growing about Julie Dixon's story, police kept an open mind about her claim that two masked men were the killers.
The police made a number of appeals through the media to try and locate these masked intruders.
Lincolnshire Police have today made a fresh appeal for witnesses in the murder case of local businessman David Twigg, aged 46. Two masked men were reportedly...
Unfortunately, nothing was forthcoming. People in Borough Marsh were obviously very concerned that we had two potential killers on the loose.
But the only person who claimed to have seen the masked men was Julie Dixon.
Somebody came up at us behind.
Yeah.
The detectives and set fire to the place.
Now,